Hello, hello.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Isaac. How are you doing?
Hey, Ruby. I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. So it is November now, right? I'm not mistaken. It is November.
It is.
So it is that weird time of year in Rhode Island where I'm at, where I'm dusting off like my winter coats and I'm putting them on and I'm putting my hands in those pockets and discovering things I don't want to be discovering a year after I last wore that jacket. I don't know if you all are on the same boat, but maybe it's just me leaving stuff in.
The best part is when you find like an old pack of gum or like a $20 bill or something like that. You're like, ooh. But yeah, when you find like some nasty old Kleenex or something, that's not fun.
Some arcade tokens or some candy.
Right.
Yeah, a fun surprise would be great, but my old sticks of gum that are like in half-open wrappers, those are not things I want to be finding in my jacket. But
Fair.
Yeah, with that, I know we're just starting our stream now. Anyone jumping in, please let us know where you are joining us from. And yeah, welcome. Welcome to the Postman Student Community Stream. While you're all jumping in and letting us know where you're joining us from, if you don't already know about our student community here at Postman, basically we promote API literacy and education among students and educators through a couple of different programs, which you can find on our webpage. And that webpage is right here across the screen. That's where you can explore all of our free programs and earn certifications. For the folks that don't yet know, we also have a LinkedIn page. And let me flash that one across the screen. That's where you can find our recent announcements and updates for our Postman Student Programs. You'll find things like our latest blogs and information about upcoming events, both in person and virtual like this one. But speaking of in-person events, we do have one next week for any educators in the San Francisco Bay Area. We'll be hosting a social mixer for local educators, and we'll be showing folks how to teach APIs using Postman and Twitter. More information about that mixer is on that same LinkedIn page. So let's take a look. I see some folks are from France. Very nice. Joining from North Attleboro, Massachusetts. Welcome, welcome. Let me flash that across the screen again for the folks that aren't aware. If you're just jumping on, we'd love to know where you're joining us from. But for a round of very formal introductions, for those folks who have never joined us on our stream before, my name is Ruby, and I'm a senior developer advocate here on the student programs team at Postman. I'm coming to you all from Providence, Rhode Island, which is on the east coast of the US. And I host these streams with my co-host, Isaac. Isaac, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Ruby. Hey, everyone. My name is Isaac Atif, and I'm a developer advocate also on the student programs team. And I'm here with Ruby again, presenting another live stream. Happy to come with you. And today we brought another special Postman guest. Everyone, please welcome our special Postman guest.
Hey, everyone. I'm Ian Douglas. I'm a senior developer advocate on the Open Technologies team. So basically, that's kind of like the next level up as far as the developer advocacy goes. Like now that you're, once you graduate and you actually get on the job and you're using Postman on the job, that's more where my team interacts. We do a lot of live events and public speaking, a lot of education, a lot of workshops and stuff like that, as well as content creation for blogging and videos, lots of live streaming and stuff as well. And I'm based in the Denver, Colorado area, so almost smack dab right in the middle of the United States.
Nice. So great to see you here, Ian, with us. Isaac, did you want to walk folks through what our streams are typically like before we jump in?
Yeah, for sure. So our streams typically feature guest speakers like Ian, where we'll go over a talk or something related to APIs or Postman, and it'll involve maybe a demo or something you could take away and even play with at the end. Experiment on your own through a collection or something. Aside from that, we also bring sometimes student community members. We'll have a spotlight or feature a student, and essentially we'll have We'll also have games at the end and talk a little bit about the community, how you can join, and our programs like the Student Expert Program. But as far as today's schedule, what's on the agenda for today, Ruby?
Yeah. So like we just met Ian, he is with us today. He's also a senior developer advocate at Postman, which means that he connects quite a bit with our Postman developer community. On our student programs team, we see lots of folks from our student community asking about where to even get started discovering APIs that can be used for projects. Here and there, we've kind of teased how we find APIs for our purposes, but we've never really dived into that process of how to discover an API. So we're going to use today's stream to explore that. How is it that we find the right API for the job? And let me actually flash that mission across the screen so you all know what we'll be talking about today. But to help us get started, Ian, I know you have tons of experience navigating this exact scenario, but what would you advise be the very first thing that a student considers when they're trying to figure out what API they should use? Are there any like questions that they should ask themselves before they go on this hunt?
I would say for a student, the primary things that you're going to want to look for are good documentation and something that's free to use and something that's friendly to students. Some paid APIs will have free student plans, for example, and so a lot of that's going to be like interacting with the company and say, "Hey, I'm a student. Here's my student email address, just to verify that you're a student of a school. And do you have like a free tier or something like that that students can use just for quick sort of one-off project ideas? Not that this is like a permanent app that's going to stay running perpetually, but just this is something I got to do over the next couple of weeks and then I'm done with this API." A lot of companies are really open to giving free access to that sort of thing. But knowing like which API to use can be kind of daunting too. Like if you're trying to find a particular kind of API, there might be, several or dozens of APIs that will serve that purpose. And so having really good documentation that's going to be straightforward to consume as somebody reading through that documentation, understand like, how do I use that API? That's going to be really key as a student, because you need to get in and quickly be able to absorb like, how does this API work? What do we do with it? So having like good quick start kind of tutorials would be really important to look for.
Yeah. So you had mentioned something about being student friendly. How would I know if I'm like navigating different APIs to use for my project, which ones are student friendly? Are there certain qualities that would probably appeal to me?
That's a good question. Normally, when I find an API, being in the industry professionally for a long time, I almost always jump to the pricing page and say, how much is this going to cost me? A lot of times your company will pay for an API if it's something that you need to use on the job. But as a student, you're often going to have like financial constraints. And so you want to try to find something that's free to use. Sometimes going to a pricing page on a particular company's API, usually if you scroll right down to the very bottom, there's sometimes a link on there that'll say like, if you're a student or a teacher or you're part of a school or something, like click here to sign up as a student or contact us or something like that. Or, if they don't have a link like that, I would say it's still probably a good idea just to contact the company and say, "Hey, I'm a student. I just need this temporarily. Like, do you have like a free tier, or do you offer free credits to students or something like that I can use the API just for a couple of weeks, maybe a month, and then be finished with it, just to let them know like, hey, I'm happy to blog about it or write about it on Twitter, things like that, where it gives them a little bit of exposure for letting you use it for free. So a lot of companies, I think, are really open to the idea of helping students out. So that would be probably where I would start, is go to a pricing page, see if they have a link on there to apply for like an API key as a student or something like that. But like I said, a lot of APIs will often let you use it for free up to a limit. And that might be like a daily limit or like so much total traffic or things like that. And so understanding what are kind of those pricing tiers, or when am I going to start getting charged money? Some of them may ask for a credit card up front. And so you have to be really careful about, putting in a real credit card, because you don't want to end up getting charged. So I would say if there's ever like a time where they ask for a credit card, instead of putting in the credit card, just try and contact the company and say, "Hey, I'm a student. I haven't got a credit card that I can use for this. Like, what do I do?" and see whether they can help you out.
Yeah, that's really solid advice, and it never hurts to ask. The worst you're going to hear is no, and
Right.
then you just look somewhere else.
Yeah, and then you find a different API
yeah.
instead. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the way that I kind of think about that question, where do I start? What should I consider as a student? I think of it in kind of like 3 buckets. So the first for me is, where do I look? Where are these like central places where a bunch of APIs will be available to me? If I have that in my back pocket, then I know where to look immediately. Even if I don't necessarily know like what data or information I'm going to be working with. Sometimes just seeing all the different APIs can be inspiring enough to kind of get you in a direction. So, where are they located is one thing. For me, the second thing is, what is the data that I want to work with? What is the information I need to use? What's the job, right? What is the right API for this job? You have to define that job first. And then the last for me is, how do I search for what I need? Are there like tips or tactics, things that I can throw into a search bar, any keywords on a documentation page that I should be like having my eyes peeled for? Those are things that I think about. But I'm wondering, Isaac, do you have any thoughts as well? Thinking about, what are the right moves for somebody who's just starting to look for that API for their job?
Yeah, for sure. Great question, Ruby. Like Ian said, it's a good thing to think about, like what your end goal is or what your purpose is. Like, are you using this API for a class, for something you're doing in school or class related? Is this like a personal project? Are you building something for a hackathon? And maybe I would say think about like the timeline, how long you would want to work on this project for. Is this something that you see yourself using just for like a couple of days? Is it going to take a couple of weeks? Is this a long-term project that you want to invest a lot more time into? And then that's when you start thinking about maybe like costs and resources. So, and that's where you can reach out and say things like, reach out to the company and tell them that you're a student or you're a recent graduate and you'd like to know if there's any special discounts or programs available for you, or if you're an educator. And those are actually really great things. So the what and the what and the why is really important. What being what kind of what is the purpose or the end goal of your project, and why are you building it? So is this like a personal project for school or for work, or for a hackathon? And yeah, and I guess like those are like thoughts I had. I did have a question for Ian towards later, but yeah, I wanted to answer what you asked first.
Yeah, for sure. I think those are really solid points as well. Thinking about time management and how long you're going to need to use that API is critical. And I know Ian touched on that a little bit earlier as well. But thinking about something I had mentioned earlier, what are those spaces where we can find APIs? One space that we like pointing folks to, of course, is our Postman API network. So I'm going to flash a link across the screen where folks can access that. And I'll do a quick share of my screen so you can see what that looks like. But this is the Postman API network. This is where you can find some publicly accessible APIs to work with. This is just the landing page. So once you arrive, this is what you'll see. You'll see what's popular on Postman for now. Scrolling down, what's trending. So you'll see some popular APIs here as well. And you can also filter. So if you go into APIs here on the left, you can sort by what's been watched the most by other folks who are visiting the public API network. And it looks like we've got quite a few watchers of the Slack web API and a couple others down here. I think Twilio's here as well. But Ian and Isaac, I'm not sure if you all are using the Postman public API network often, but I was curious if you have any tips and tricks if someone's exploring the API network here.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I think similar to what we said earlier is like, how do you know if it's the right API? And you kind of have to dig in a little bit on like what features are available on the API. Like I used to run a project with my students where they had to go get weather from a weather API. And there are lots and lots of weather APIs out there. Like you could just search here in Postman and just type in weather API, and you're going to find a lot of hits. You're going to find a lot of people who have forked other weather APIs. So I would say the first tip here is like look for a company name and not just a username when you're searching in the public network here. is you want to look for like a particular company, like, Weather Underground or something like that, that looks like, oh, this is a company name as opposed to Ian Douglas or something like that, because that's probably just a fork of someone else's API. Sometimes you can click through their collection to see where they forked it from, and you can eventually get back to like the original API source. So that would be sort of one way to look through that. But what I had to tell my students is, okay, well, you need a weather API, and they would just go find like any weather API. It's like, okay, well, but this is how it's used within the project. You're going to be taking a road trip, and so you need to know what the weather is going to be like when you arrive, and so you got to make sure that there's like a forecast into the future, by hour or by day. And so then they would start to narrow down, okay, well, which weather API should we use? And so there's a little bit of exploration around how do you find those APIs, but then how do you explore the features to know whether those features map to what it is you're trying to build. And kind of going back to what Isaac was saying, like you have to know what it is you're building and really understanding like what is this project going to be about, or what is this app going to be about, and then what kind of features do I need. Don't just go find an API that's got like all the bells and whistles, because that can sometimes distract you from like trying to get the core kind of thing working. I would often sort of tell my students like, hey, get the core functionality going and then add the bells and the whistles. And so sometimes, you need to just start simple. And then as you find that you need other features, then maybe explore other APIs. And if you write your code in a sort of an abstracted enough way, swapping out one API for another is a lot more straightforward than if you kind of build the application with a particular API in mind, and now you're kind of locked into that from what we call kind of vendor lock-in, and you want to try to avoid that as much as possible in your code. So writing your code in an abstracted way that you can swap an API in and out is going to be really beneficial. But being able to kind of look through these APIs and say, well, what feature does this API give me? What feature does that API give me? And kind of drawing your own comparison against them is really helpful.
Yeah. Let me just stop sharing for a quick moment.
Yeah, for sure. Ruby, I wanted to add some thoughts to your question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So your question was ways to use the API network, the Postman API network. So yeah, like Ian said, it definitely is important to know your reason why and for what you're using an API, to understand which API you want to use to get the job done. But as far as the Postman API network, I think some really cool features to point out is that Postman's API network breaks down the process of finding an API and makes it really simple and cool. Like I saw you playing around with the Explorer tab, and the categories is cool too. So Postman categorizes APIs, so you can get started. It's almost like a choose your own adventure, or like a pretty much like it makes picking an API a lot easier. So let's say you were at a hackathon, or you wanted to find inspiration and you didn't know exactly what you wanted, but you knew that you wanted to do a hackathon project or something for school, and your teacher just said, uh, use Postman to make an API project that can that does like 5 different things, or can be used by at least 5 users simultaneously. So, and the rest is up to you. Postman API network lets you pick categories, look through categories of APIs. So there's all those different ones like payments and DevOps. Not to run through everything there, but there's a lot of cool categories there. And there's also in the Spotlight section, which shows API collections that have been handpicked, not just collections, APIs and workspaces that have been handpicked by Postman. So it's an actively curated list. So if you're looking for maybe the latest categories, or if you scroll down, there's even an APIs for beginners section in the Spotlight, which is really cool. And then if you check number 1, that's us. That's Postman Student Programs. So there's definitely lots of cool stuff you can find using that in the Spotlight tab. As you can see, there's 64 people watching that. So thank you for watching us. And if you go down even further, I think what's really cool is if you go to the browse column and you click on teams, you can find APIs that are categorized by different teams. So there's the official Twitter API, there's the Notion API, there's Slack. So if let's say you were really interested in using the Twitter API for academic purposes or for just research or your own personal hobby or use, then you can use the Postman API network to follow all the latest changes or things being made or added to the Twitter API collection on Postman. So it's a really great tab or really great page to explore. So, or the API network tab is a really great page to explore and find out more. That's different from the Explore tab, but yeah, there's really great different features on this one tab. So lots of things you can do here, and that's just scratching the surface of it.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you pointed out the categories section and all of the different ways that we can continue to filter here within the API network. It's definitely a powerful source for students, especially who are looking for all of these different features like Ian mentioned earlier. So for example, if you're looking for something communication focused, easy to just find that right away within the categories. But something else that I think all of us have touched on lightly so far is taking on that developer mindset of programmatic thinking, like breaking things down into smaller pieces. Ian, you mentioned, if you have a project where you're using a weather API, what exactly are you supposed to be doing with that weather API?
Right.
If you're getting the forecast, like break it down even further. What specific jobs are you trying to accomplish?
Right. Yeah, like understanding like what do I actually need to solve, the overall project or the overall application sort of problem space, and then determining does this API even have that feature. And sometimes it's going to mean like going through a lot of different APIs and saying, I need to be able to get the temperature in Celsius and Fahrenheit. And I need to be able to get the latitude and longitude of the location, or I need to be able to specify a location by a zip code or a postal code. Like, does that API support all of these things, or does it only give me some of it? And do I have to go find that other information somewhere else? Some API providers, they try to, like I said, put kind of all the bells and whistles in there, and so trying to find the best one is tricky. But if you don't understand what it is you need to build, then you're gonna have a harder time picking the right API, where you're not gonna have to like swap it out later and go, oh no, like this API doesn't have like this one detail that I missed in the documentation for the project, or this one idea that I really wanted to do, this API doesn't do it. So sometimes it means kind of drawing out like a little matrix comparison for yourself around this API does these things, this API does these things, and like which of these is going to be the best one suited for the project that I want to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think like my back pocket thing is always the Postman API network. I usually look there first, but it's definitely not the only space, that you should limit yourself to. Although we do have like a vast library of APIs that you can search for. We do have other resources. So we have a Postman Student Programs repository on GitHub. I think I have a link I can share across the screen here for anyone who's curious. Let's see. There you go. But we have some fun APIs that are free, and most of them have no limits on them. So they're very student friendly. Like we mentioned earlier, what does student friendly really mean? It should be accessible. It should be hopefully free. So these are some of the ones that we've curated into a list in this repository. And there's also nothing wrong with Googling the API that you want to use. So think about what service you're trying to use, and then Google something like, if you're unable to find something, for example, in our API network, let me just go to google.com. You can search something like communications API. So
Or one that I would look for, Ruby, is just student-friendly APIs. Like
that's
just
another
Google,
research. Yeah.
just Google that. There's actually a really good list from Vonage if you want to pull that one up. If you find that one in it's called the Ultimate List of Fun APIs. This is a really great, again, kind of curated, like here's some really neat APIs that you can use for project ideas. They got Pokemon, they got like all kinds of stuff in here, like go build QR codes if you really want to rickroll somebody, like GitHub, and like all kinds of like really fun APIs. So like, yeah, Googling just free APIs or fun APIs for a project, any of those Google terms are going to help find those APIs. But again, are they going to be free? Or do they have like a student friendly sort of pricing tier? That's something that you can explore once you start looking through some APIs.
Yeah, something else I wanted to ask your thoughts on, Ian and Isaac. Sometimes if I'm Googling something, like on our last episode, we used the Spotify API. If we go into the documentation for the Spotify API, I'm a student, I'm just doing this for the first time. What should I be looking for? I know I should be using the Spotify API. I think I'm on the right page. Are there things that I should be keeping my eyes peeled for? And what are those things?
First thing I would do is look right up at the very top around the menus and look for something like quick start that's right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's your quick start, like getting started kind of guide that's hopefully going to walk you through step by step. Here's how to set up your account, get your API key, register your app and so on, and then like how to start go building it. Hopefully with some code samples in different programming languages that you can like kind of get started in a hurry. Or it may just be a generic kind of example. Sometimes they'll actually have a bundled app that you can actually download and kind of unpack. It might already be pre-written in some programming language like JavaScript or Python or something like that. And so unpacking that and kind of exploring it and trying to understand what is this code doing and can I replicate that in the application or the framework that I'm trying to build. Sometimes it's a good place to get started. But I would generally look for like a quick start guide or a start here kind of label, like anything along those lines that kind of says like, hey, over here, like this is where you want to start. I think is the best way to go through and just look at the documentation and look at the kind of the general feature set of how do I in the case of Spotify, like how do I just go look up a list of artists or something that matches search term. They're going to have something sort of pre-packaged or pre-bundled as far as like how to get started with the API and start hitting that API and see what kind of results you get.
Yeah, definitely. I would add that reference is another one that I would be keeping my eyes peeled for. You'll usually see endpoints that you should be referencing, parameters, extra documentation about these sorts of things when you're working with their API. So if you click in there, you can see, how do you engage with their albums, with artists, shows, etc. And you'll get information about the endpoints you should be using, any headers, authorization, all kinds of nitty-gritty details would be found once you select reference. This might be unique for some documentation. So for Spotify API, there is like a reference section. Not all services have like a separate section like this, so you might find it somewhere else. But this is another thing that I would keep my eyes peeled for.
Another fun thing here within Postman as a Postman feature is you can actually highlight that curl command and you can import that into Postman and it'll actually make you a collection request to actually replicate what that curl command is doing.
Yeah, I think this was something that we had tried on our last episode as well. It looks like this copy button isn't giving me any feedback, but that is something that we can try in Postman. Let's see.
Yeah, Ruby, I wanted to add an answer too. So definitely references and quick start, super, super important and really great places to start, like you and Ian both pointed out. I would also say if there is a tab that says help, I would just go there and have as much simple explanation, just simple help or explanations that break down how to use this API or how to read the documentation. And if there's a video, a tutorial video, that's huge because I'm not sure about the both of you, but I'm a visual learner. And the first thing I usually do is I actually just I look up a YouTube tutorial for anything that I'm doing, whether it's like documentation on the API or some new technology or anything. So yeah, YouTube is huge. If there's no videos already available on that API, or uh, if there's no videos in the quick start or in the reference or in the help section, then I go straight to YouTube and I look up how to use this API, and that makes such a huge deal.
Yeah, definitely. Like look, on the help page, see if there's a tutorial or something along those lines. And YouTube videos, yeah, they're generally fantastic. Someone actually mentioned in chat, like I used to go to like a GitHub repo or whatever where you see a bunch of APIs, but sometimes those get out of date. And so again, you have to look at how old is the resource that you're looking at. Sometimes when I do a Google search, you can go into the search tools and say, only show me results from the past year. So you can say like best student friendly APIs, but then filter that down by just the last year of results. That way you're not finding a list from a decade ago that, maybe half of those APIs aren't even around anymore. So like filtering out the results to really understand, like, give me a current list of APIs. So it would be really helpful.
Yeah, that's a solid tip. And just double checking, this is a response to this question from, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing it, Gaetan. So it sounds like the issue here is that sometimes they'll get APIs that are not working. So Ian's tip here is to make sure that you're searching for something current so you don't run into this issue. Cool. Another source, so we just, Ian had mentioned earlier that we can just copy that curl script and import it here right into Postman. That's something that we just tried, and you can see that we've got the endpoint here, and we're basically ready to start working with this request. Super cool. All we did was just copy this and import it right into Postman. But something else I wanted to point out, we talked about the API network. We talked about our student repository. Another great source of APIs is government APIs. So if you just search government APIs, you'll get links to resources like this where you can find stuff about census information. So if you're working with data sets that have to do with demographics in particular areas, this is a great resource for that. It's publicly available information provided by local and national governments. So another great resource. I think I have a link I can share across the screen for this one as well. There you go.
No, that's really cool. I just wanted to footnote that that's awesome. Publicly available data is huge because it's free, and anything free is great. And also, this is data that's being updated by local or federal government. So, really great resource. I would highly encourage everyone in the chat to like look into these resources for sure for APIs.
These APIs are especially great if you're trying to build like a real world kind of application, as opposed to like Isaac and Ruby and I want to get together for lunch. Like, where are we going to have lunch together? Like, this is, you can actually use this data to solve real problems. Like, show me the demographics of people that live in my area, and then how can I like help them in some way, or, link that to education data or link it to health data. Like, you've got all of that data, and it's a lot of data. So having those APIs are going to help you come up with like project ideas. If you're trying to come up with your own project idea, you can get like real world data from this, as opposed to, coming up with like projects that maybe other people have done, where you're just kind of like making a copy of a project. Like, you can come up with some really novel ideas out of this free civic data and federal data. So as much as possible, like, these APIs are fantastic for projects, especially for student projects. That'll get you noticed by companies for sure, because you're accessing large quantities of data, and being able to filter through those and do something with that data is going to look really great.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I have a question that might be a tough one to answer, so definitely noodle on it if you need to. But something that I was thinking about is, let's imagine that I'm a student and I'm doing my due diligence. I'm reading all of the documentation for an API thoroughly, but I'm stuck on one step that's been outlined in the documentation for an API. I have no idea how to go further. I'm getting to a point of frustration. What should I do?
A lot of companies will have like a contact us page or some sort of support channel. And again, if you let them know, like, hey, I'm a student, I just need a little bit of help. Like, do you have like an online community, or is there some amount of support that you can give me to kind of get over this problem, or get through a particular challenge that I'm having, trying to understand this or that. So I would try to find like good communities. There are often going to be communities around, like, if you're using the Twilio API, they're going to have a whole community of people, and you can tweet at their developers and so on. Like, you can actually find them online and get help. If they've got a developer relations team or developer advocates, like, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm stuck on this thing. Many times people are like, oh, you're a student? Absolutely happy to help. So finding some kind of community. Yeah, in this case, Spotify, they got a link right on there for community. It's like, great. How do I get into that community? They've got forums. A lot of companies will have like a Discord community or something like that, that you can dive in and ask help from other people, who may also be students, or they might be, old technologists like myself that have been around for a minute, and but we've got time and energy of like, yeah, I would love to help you out, like how can I help you. And so being able to ask good questions about like, I've tried this, this is the result I'm getting, but this is the result I'm expecting, like what do I do. And so taking kind of good information to them and just be like, I don't know how to use this API, like that's not helpful as a question to bring to a community, but to be able to say, I'm trying to use this API endpoint, I'm expecting this, but I'm getting that and I'm stuck, I don't know what to do. Bringing specific questions like that to a community is a great way to get help.
Yeah, definitely agree with all of the above. And I did just flash the Postman Student Discord link across the screen as well. We do get a lot of students who are engaging with APIs for the first time, and our community is pretty strong and really supports one another. So we see a lot of folks just chiming in and jumping in to help each other out whenever they're stuck. So if you're looking for a community of folks who are also just getting started or are also students, or have varying levels of experience, you're welcome to join our student Discord community where you'll find these kinds of people. We also have a Postman community forum where people who are engaging with APIs through Postman often go with their questions and connect with one another there as well. Isaac or Ian, did you have any other suggestions for different kinds of communities folks can find?
Yeah. I know Ian touched on Rapid API. Did you want to talk about that, Ian, or?
Well, Rapid API is a really good sort of cataloging kind of we've got our own public API network at Postman, obviously, but Rapid API does a really good job of curating like lists of APIs. From there might be community-based links, but I would generally, once I find an API that I really want to use, see if there's a specific API for that. So a company may have a Slack channel, they may have their own Discord community. Of course, then you can quickly feel overwhelmed with like, I've got 50 different Slack communities and 100 different Discord communities. Like, where do I find that information? But I would say like go like start at a company level and see whether they have a direct community, or reach out to their support team and be like, I'm trying to get some help. Do you have like a community forum that I can sort of log in and ask specific questions? A lot of times companies will have something along those lines, or they'll be able to direct you to someone that can help you out, especially if you're a student. You just say, I'm a student, I'm just trying this for free, I'm trying to build this quick little project, or I'm at a hackathon, I'm trying to build this thing as a student. Can you help me out? A lot of companies are willing to help. You just have to ask. And so if they've got a Discord community, if like, I would say use whatever community you're comfortable in using. If you're comfortable with using Discord, see if there's a Discord community. If you're comfortable with Slack, see if there's a Slack community. If you're comfortable with web-based forums, see if a company's got that. Everyone's going to be a little bit different with how they want to interact. I even like to suggest, look for live streams, look for YouTube videos and things like that. But you might be able to find somebody live streaming about a particular topic, maybe not around a specific API, but like if you're stuck on how to integrate something in Python, go see if somebody's live streaming about Python and be like, hey, I'm stuck trying to use this API. Like, do you have any advice on where I can go to get help? Ask other people for suggestions on communities as well. There's a lot of communities out there. There are a lot of people that want to help you. But being able to find those resources can be tricky. So reach out to people in your network, or reach out to people and start building a network and say, hey, I'm trying to learn Java, or I'm trying to learn Rust or C# or something like that. Like, where can I find a good community so that I can, ask for more specific help on how to do this API call in C#, things like that.
For sure. Agreed. Definitely don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Isaac, did you want to add your thoughts?
I just wanted to echo exactly what you and Ian said. It always helps to be a part of an API savvy or friendly API community. So join Postman's Student Programs Discord community. It's the best. And
I'm in there too.
Ian is in there too. Ruby's there. It's a party. And tune into to our streams, and as well as DevRel streams for the best and friendliest and most welcoming community you can find for APIs. Tell them I sent you. But yeah, Ruby.
For sure. But I am going to, looks like we're coming up on the last about 20 minutes of our call here. So I do want to wrap up so we can have a chance to really invest in our game at the end. But with that all said, this was super fun talking to you both about how to find the right API for the job. First defining the job and all the different tactics that we can employ when searching for that API. But wrapping up the episode, I did want to, did I already flash this across the screen? I did. Our Student Expert application. So for those who are wondering about our programs, the Student Expert program allows you to learn about APIs at your own pace, and you get a free certification with a badge. But wait, there's more. Student experts also get to join exclusive expert-only events from Postman. If that's something that's up your alley, please don't forget to select live stream in your application so that we know how to find you and where you came from when you signed up. But let's jump into some highlights and shout outs like we do in every episode of some of our awesome community members. We often see a lot of folks really stand out in our Discord server, which you can join at this link. Let me see if I am displaying it. Yes, I am. Recently, Jasir shared an article that they wrote about cron jobs and cron job use cases. So this is something that Jasir, went out of their way to share with the community within Discord. And we love folks who share their learning and are constantly exploring new learnings and learning together within our community. So huge shout out to Jasir for sharing that information. If you're a fan of picking up on new technical skills, you might want to check out what folks like Jasir are doing on our Discord server. That link is shared on the screen for those who are curious. And if you have noticed, some of our previous streams have included some of our Discord members and student community members live. So if you join our Discord server and you're sharing a project that you've been working on, you might just be featured on one of our live stream episodes. If you'd like to check that out, again, the link is on the screen. Did anyone, Ian or Isaac, want to share any highlights or shout outs?
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to just quickly say shout out to, forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Shriniketh. He is a member of our Postman Student Community Discord server, and he shared some really great resources on top no-code tools to build and test APIs with. So shout out to you, Shriniketh. Thank you for being a really helpful and active member of our community. And just like Ruby said, if you join our community and we see that you're active and you're either talking and communicating with fellow community members or sharing resources, and especially if you're helping answer questions, then we definitely will, shout you out and give you, a spotlight for sure in our community.
Nice. Ian, did you have a shout out you wanted to share?
Well, I haven't interacted with too many students, but I am in that Discord community. So feel free to DM me if you see me. I just dropped a hello in the introductions channel, I believe. So feel free to interact. If you've got questions, anything I can help out with, I'm happy to kind of nerd out on APIs and so on. If you've got programming questions, things along those lines, or career level questions, I'm happy to help out with that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, awesome. Love that you were able to do that in the moment. That was the introductions channel you mentioned, Ian?
Yeah.
I think it was.
I just gave you a howdy, Ian.
Oh, sweet.
Nice. All right. Cool. So it looks like we have just enough time to jump into our Kahoot game. So let's double check that it is available over here on the side. But yes, if you've never used Kahoot, it's a quiz game that you can play for free with all of us right now by logging into Kahoot.it. Let me actually see if I can display that. Do I have it here? I may not. Quick second. It's at this website, Kahoot.it. Once you are at the website, you can log in either on your browser, on your desktop, or through your phone, through Safari, or whatever browser you're using. Looks like the game code here, Isaac has shared it with me in our super secret channel. I'm going to flash that across the screen as well, or just edit this. Forgive me for the technical difficulties. I'm just editing this so you can all see it. Code. And it looks like we have it up here. Awesome. Right, so looks like we're waiting for a couple of players. If you are joining us, you're logging into Kahoot.it and using this game pin to join our game. And again, it's a quiz game. We love to see who makes it to our leaderboard at the end, and there are usually some really hilarious names. Let me see. Who do we have? Magic Cat, Mystery Lemming, Noble Rooster. I do miss the Halloween background that they had for Kahoot. I don't know if you recall that, Isaac.
I did. That was fun. That was a good time.
It was very spooky. Ian, have you played Kahoot with us before?
Not with your team. We've used it in some other Postman events that we did in San Francisco, though.
These are always fun. And I know this Kahoot game is going to have questions about this stream that we just had. So it'll be interesting to see. Isaac's always got the funniest questions.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, this time I wanted to. This time we have Ian on the live stream, so I had to reference his 3D printing skills.
No spoiler alerts.
Well, that's not an answer. That's not a correct answer.
Oh, spoilers!
All right, it's the first question, so it's again.
Nice. We're ready to get started. Ooh, suspense. All right, let's see.
Which media API did we experiment with using Postman in our most recent stream? Was it A, SoundCloud, B, YouTube, C, Spotify, or D, Apple Podcasts?
You had to have watched that last episode, and we did just talk about it in this episode.
We did. Let's see who was here last time with us.
Ooh, we got 5 answers so far. A couple seconds left.
Nice. Everyone got the correct answer. Oh, well, 5 people chose Spotify. Good job.
All right, who's on the leaderboard?
In first place, we have Cute Pony, and then Happy Urchin, Smooth Fox, Noble Rooster, and Bold Mouse. Nice.
I love these names.
Great names.
Yeah. Next question. What is Ian's job at Postman? Is it A, 3D printer wizard, B, senior developer advocate, C, balloon animal wizard, or D, electric triangle player?
There are electric triangles?
It's a joke. I think there are electric triangles, but I don't think there's a lot of people who play them. So I'm not sure.
I feel like Ian's 3D printer sound in the background is maybe throwing people for a whirl.
a bit of a giveaway. I mean, the fact that I'm 3D printing stuff all the time, or got cool little like Postmanot figurines, but no, that's not actually my title.
Nice. And nice. So we got 5 people who chose the correct answer. Senior developer advocate. Good job, everybody.
Ooh, somebody thought about the electric triangle.
I don't blame him. I think Ian definitely would be an electric triangle player in another life.
If I had a choice, sure, that would be great.
Awesome. So
way easier than an electric guitar.
Cute Pony in first, Smooth Fox in second, and Noble Rooster and Bold Mouse. Oh, this is looking really close. All right, next question. Where on Postman can you go to find a public API collection? Is it A, the Explore tab, B, the API network, C, the search bar, or D, all of the above?
Tricky. These are good questions.
Yeah. One or more of these selections are incorrect, is the only hint. Ooh. Even spread, mostly.
Ooh.
Nice.
Yep. Stumped some people on that one.
Cute Pony. Wow.
Ooh, we got to switch up. Cute Pony's on fire, though. You see that?
Yeah. Good job with the streak. Awesome. All right, next question. Postman hosted its own API-themed hackathon in 2021 called the Postman API Hack. Is it B, Hackstro World, C, South by Southwest, or D, the Post Awards?
South by Southwest. I can't.
That's actually pretty clever. So
Thank you. Someone should like start a hackathon and call it that. Nice. And I love that we have two choices. Two people chose South by Southwest. I mean that sounds like a good answer. That should be Postman's like one of their future names for hackathon.
I think that does need to be a name for sure.
Awesome.
We did have somebody ask if we got Travis Scott. To be clear, not yet.
Nice. Awesome. Good job to everyone who chose that answer. Let's look at the scoreboard now. Ooh,
bold mouse.
bold mouse.
Moves.
Make it taking first place with an answer streak of 4. Then we have Cute Pony in second, Noble Rooster coming up right behind, followed by Smooth Fox and Sturdy Wildcat. This is a good game. Next question. All right, final question. Who was our Postmanaut guest in our most recent stream? Was it A, Pooja Mystery, B, Carson Hunter, C, Abhinav, or D, Alexi? So for this one, you also had to tune into our previous stream where we talked about the Spotify API with, you're going to have to figure out who that was here.
Use your Google search muscle.
Oh, only one person chose the correct answer here.
Interesting.
Wow.
Fun that a bunch of people thought it was our CEO. So
yeah, we haven't had Abhinav on here yet, but great that you guys think that he was here. It must mean we're pretty popular. That's great.
It's an omen.
All right, and the final score: Noble Rooster in third place. Nice
job.
Cute Pony in second. Way to go.
Very nice. All right, let's see.
Bold mouse for the win.
Bold mouse. Good job. Runners up, Happy Urchin and Smooth Fox. Congrats, everybody.
That was a close call. Cute Pony was in the lead for a while, and then Bold Mouse out of nowhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got to watch out for those mice, I tell you. They'll sneak up on you.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for playing.
Yes, it was a blast. But yeah, with all of that said and having played our game now, we will see everyone in 2 weeks at the same time for the next student program stream. As a heads up to our student stream audience, we're just 2 episodes away from our season ending episode. So we are so excited about our surprise special guest on the final episode of this year. If you're in our Discord server, it's not a surprise who's going to be joining us, but for others, it will be. So we can't wait for that season ending episode. That one will be in December. We have 2 episodes until then. But I can't wait. I don't know about you all, Ian and Isaac and folks in the audience, but I'm counting down.
Awesome. Oh, I'm excited for sure.
All right. Any closing thoughts, Ian or Isaac?
I did see one question in chat earlier that someone was asking about why is it a good idea to read API documentation. I think we kind of touched on this a little bit around knowing what it is you're trying to build and does this API have all the features that you want. So definitely pay attention to documentation. It's something that I've learned along the way. You got to read those docs and follow tutorials, but appreciate you letting me be a part of it today. It was a lot of fun. Closing thoughts. Our DevRel team, we stream every Thursday, so you're welcome to drop by those streams anytime. Same channel, so same place that you're watching this. We'll be here Thursday mornings. If you're ever at an event, come up and say hi to Postman. If we're there, if we've got a booth or something like that, please come up and say hi to us. We love interacting with people. So
awesome.
Yeah. Right. Just thank you everyone for tuning in, and I will see you in the next one.
All right. See y'all. Have a good one.